Folks, we'll get right to it. Let's take a look at what we got going on today. All right. I'm assuming everybody can hear me, yes? We good? I'm going to make sure that you guys can hear me, yes? Everybody? No? One person?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, here we go. So here's what we're going to be doing today, folks. We're going to be doing a little term review. We're going to play a little Quizlet live. I've got a Quizlet link without the pictures so that you're going to be ready for that term quiz at the end of the hour. Then I'm going to show you where to find your Chapter 12 guided notes. I might do the first couple pages with you there, depending on how well that goes. I'm going to give a little shameless plug about a new course offering for next year, which will be available for you folks who are going to be juniors next year. So I want you to take a look out for the new course that I'm going to be team teaching, and then we'll finish up the hour with a little term quiz. So yeah, without further ado, let's all go to Quizlet.live right now. Play a little Quizlet live, and then we'll get on to the next thing. Quizlet is down. No way. Come on. Oh boy. Okay, well, since Quizlet is down right now, perhaps I will show you how to complete the Chapter 12 guided notes, and then we can kind of come back to that, okay? So let's all go right now to Schoology, and it'll look a little something like this. So what you're going to want to do is open up this, the U.S. History textbook link here and go down and find Chapter 12. So it'll say Unit 3, Chapter 12. Open up that chapter. Okay? And you're also going to want to open up this World War I folder. And under there, you are going to see Chapter 12 guided notes. So you open up Chapter 12 guided notes. You're going to want to put that into Notability. And then we're going to use the chapter to complete this, okay? Okay, so Chapter 12 has got 5 sections dealing with it. It's kind of in a chronological order here. So Section 1 is going to talk about the road to war, the causes, how we got involved in this war. The United States is going to be Section 2, the European front in Section 3, the home front in Section 4, and then global peacemaker in Section 5. So this is going to be like Wilson's 14 points. League of Nations, all that stuff, okay? So great timeline here for you to understand. From 1914 to 1918 is World War I, and then you obviously know by now that the United States is going to get involved in the war in 1970, okay? So right away from the get-go here, you know, the first thing that people always talk about when it comes to World War I is the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. And that is an important fact, okay? But the underlying principles are the 4 things that you see there right in your Chapter 12, Section 1 guided notes, okay, are the underlying principles of how this one incident blew up, okay, into a world war, okay? Because I would have a hard time believing that we would ever have a war of this scope ever again, just based off of, you know, one assassination, you know, without these underlying isms of imperialism, militarism, nationalism, and secret alliances. That's how this was made into the world war that it was. So that's why we kind of refer to this assassination as the spark, not especially a cause, but the spark, okay? So first thing we'll look at here is imperialism. Okay, imperialism. Now, this is the time period in which we kind of look at European powers racing for colonial empire. They were trying to pick up as many countries as they could, and they were doing that in Africa, Asia, the Pacific. They were all over the globe, and that competition between some of these different European powers to try to grab as many of these colonies really kind of sparked some of these other things. Okay, they were looking for as many resources as possible, looking to exploit as many countries as possible, and they really all of these European powers really wanted to call themselves an empire, which is why after World War I, you're going to see a lot less of this colonial thing and more of an imperial thing. Okay. But that quest for worldwide influence is definitely going to play into there. Okay, so what can we put for World War I? In this chart. Well, why is imperialism a cause of this? Because this is really going to fuel that worldwide competition to try to pick up as many colonies as they could. So militarism. Okay, diplomacy, meaning negotiation, had taken a backseat to militarism. Militarism is really going to be fueled by some of these other things, by nationalism as well. But what people here was the circular logic that they were using. Look, if we know, as Germany, we know that if Great Britain has X number of weapons, then we want to have just at least one more. Okay, and that military buildup on either side just continued to build each other up. The more militaristic one country was, the more militaristic other nations were, and that military buildup again is something for you to consider because when we're not in a state of war, building one's military up can be viewed as by other countries as an act of war. Okay, so nationalism, next one. We already talked about nationalism a little bit. We know that it is synonymous with patriotism. However, nationalism is kind of the notion that you're better than others. Okay, and we can understand that the buildup of one's what do I want to say, can kind of build into what we're kind of called delusions of grandeur. Okay, all countries involved, due to their own nationalism and due to their own preconceived notions that they were superior to others, they all thought this war was going to be over in a matter of a couple of weeks. Okay, and that's important to note there in your chart. Next one, alliances. How did alliances or secret alliances really kind of play into this? Well, unbeknownst to the world, Great Britain and France shared a looser alliance, and Germany and Austria-Hungary were linked by a treaty. And it wasn't necessarily that Germany wanted to go to war with Great Britain, but since they had that alliance with Austria-Hungary, and since they had, Britain and France had this loose alliance connecting, Serbia and everything else, they got involved in a war based off of those alliances. And had those alliances been more public, I wish they would have titled us secret alliances, okay, perhaps they wouldn't have been so apt to jump into back somebody that was getting into conflict. So mobilization is kind of like militarism. It's the idea that you are readying your troops for war. It's going to involve maybe a military draft, okay? But getting everybody involved in this mobilization is going to take the whole nation, okay? Every nation is going to completely mobilize, not just by getting troops ready for war, but it's going to get the nation's economy ready for war as well to support the entire war effort, okay? For the Central Powers and for the allies on your chart there, just be sure to list who's involved with what. So for your Central Powers, go ahead and list right now Germany and Austria-Hungary. And then for your allies, go ahead and list Russia, France, Serbia, Great Britain. Okay, good. Any questions about that first sheet, kids? Anything you missed?
Russia, France, who?
Russia, France, Serbia, Great Britain. Hi, Mr. Winters.
Hi.
How you doing?
All right.
Okay. You want a hug or something?
Yeah, my kids are flopping big time.
How so?
Russia, they're not doing anything.
Oh.
Russia, France, Syria,
Serbia.
Serbia, Great Britain. I wrote it.
Very good. Okay, so when you are doing the guided notes, folks, I don't want you to just define it. And that's different than telling me the significance. And I'll explain that here in just a second as I scroll down to section 2. Okay, section 12.2. Okay, first key term that I want you to understand is a U-boat. Now, you probably would refer to this as a submarine, and I don't want you to write down submarine. I don't want you to write down Unterseeboot, okay, which is what the Germans called it. Okay, the significance of the U-boat, folks, was this: is that as ships were, these could be ships that weren't in a position of war. Maybe they were not in a declared war against Germany. Germany declared, okay, any liner that was going from the United States to Great Britain, okay, and since they were in war, in a state of war with Great Britain, okay, they warned the United States several times, okay, that if you're going to a nation that we're at war with, we're going to blow that thing out of the water with our submarine. Okay, so this really kind of brings the bigger question of, well, who owns the seas? Who owns the oceans? Because the German U-boats were just running rampant, blowing these ships out of the water, and obviously the sinking of the Lusitania is gonna play into that. Okay, now what I hope you gathered from the World War I crash course is that if the sinking of the Lusitania was truly a cause for the United States getting involved in the war, then perhaps they would have gotten involved in the war a little bit earlier. Okay. There was a lot of hesitancy to get involved, and it had a lot to do with who we were going to ally with. Okay, it also had to do with the fact that Wilson got elected on that campaign promise of not getting involved in the war. Okay, so the Sussex Pledge, you are going to see that right here. The United States threatened to cut diplomatic ties to Germany in what came to be called the Sussex Pledge. The German government, again, promised that U-boats would warn ships before attacking. So again, this is really playing into the this new warfare in the sea. Now, navies weren't anything new, but the idea is that if you are going to be in a state of war against somebody, it needs to be public and it needs to be announced. And you can't just, shoot these ships because they're not warships, okay? The Zimmerman note, I know that you guys covered that in the crash course as well, but if you like conspiracy theories, I hope that you're into the Zimmerman note, okay? Because this note was supposedly intercepted. Well, it was intercepted, I guess, but I kind of like playing off the conspiracy theory here that Germany sent this note to Mexico saying that, look, we understand that the United States had, taken all this land from you in the Mexican-American War, and if you keep the United States out of the Western Front, once Germany wins the war, we will make sure that all those lands are returned to you. Okay. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there that this was actually written by, the British to try to get the United States involved in the war. So anyway, that's the basis of the Zimmerman note, kind of adding to the reasons why the United States would jump in on the side of England and France in this war. Okay. Here we go. Russian Revolution. You should know that the United States gets out of Russia gets out of World War I because they've got their own Russian Revolution kind of in the middle of the war. Okay, that's going to play a lot into what Russia is going to become. Okay, important that you know what an autocrat is. I don't see it bolded right here, but an autocrat is somebody that has absolute power. Okay, absolute power. This is going to be the end of the reign of these autocrats who were, ruling kind of like a monarchy, but they had absolute power in their nations. And you're going to see the resistance of the Russian Revolution is going to have a lot to do with that. Okay. Next, we can go right to 12.3 here, folks. Hope you don't mind me doing this with you here, but. Americans on the European front. What is the Selective Service Act? Okay, this is a draft of young men for military service. This is still something that we've got in place today. Now, they don't have conscription in which you have to get involved into the military, and they haven't enabled the draft in a while. But once you young men out there turn 18, you're going to have to register for the Selective Service Act so that our nation knows exactly how many people, how many warm bodies we've got out there in case we need to go to war. Okay, but that Selective Service Act is exactly that. It's authorizing a draft of young men for military service, authorizing them to be able to pull them into the Army. Okay. Volunteers for the National Guardsmen made up the remainder of what was called the American Expeditionary Force. Yep, that's just how they referred to that body of soldiers that they had made. Okay, so you got your lottery of 3 million draftees to serve in the war. Volunteers and National Guardsmen made up the remainder of what was called the American Expeditionary Force. This is what they're kind of the synonym for soldiers fighting in World War I. Okay. Starting in May of 1917, all merchant troop ships traveled in a convoy. A convoy consisted of a group of unarmed ships surrounding a ring of surrounded by a ring of destroyers. So a convoy was just their way of protecting these ships because they were so worried about them being blown out of the water by the Untersee boats. Okay. Next one we're looking for here is Zeppelin. You guys probably know what a Zeppelin is, I hope. Okay, we learn a little bit more about trench warfare here. German Zeppelins, or floating airships, those big, well, what a great idea in a time of war to have a big balloon that you can blow out of the sky. And German bombers launched more than 100 raids on London, killing almost 1,500 civilians. So before planes were really utilized, you know, first planes are going to be used for like scouting and stuff like that, but the Germans are going to be using Zeppelins, those big balloons, okay, in warfare. Kind of ended right after that. They didn't use it too much after that. It was going to be used more as transports, okay? The Republic signed an armistice. We know that an armistice is a ceasefire, okay? An armistice is a ceasefire or a treaty, okay? And we know that that's on November 11th, 1918, okay? Armistice Day, okay? Or what we call now Veterans Day. Okay. Good. Well, I want you guys to do 12.4 and 12.5 kind of on your own there, okay? And we'll see if we can get Quizlet to work. If we can't get Quizlet to work, you're just going to have to figure it out and take that quiz when you can, okay? We'll see if it works now. Hot dog. Seems to be working. Everybody go to Quizlet.live for me, please. Or maybe it won't work. Uh-oh. Four, 5, 1, 7, 3, 3. How many we got in this meeting here, Mr. Winters? Let's see, 24. I'll give you about a minute to jump in there, folks. Missing about 4 of you. I'll give you about 20 seconds. Here we go. All right, here we go. Here are your spirit animals. We lost Matthew. And they're racing. Something. All right, round 2. And there. Got that code right to the top left there, 451733. And they're racing.
Pieper. What should I write for autocrat? I had a phone call. Sorry, it was important.
Don't be sorry. Why are you apologizing?
What'd you write for autocrat?
A ruler with absolute power. You're going to see an end to that era with World War I.
It would what?
That's like basically the end of autocrats, I would argue, is World War I.
Okay.
Did you have a nice weekend, Mr. Winters?
Yeah, we went up north.
Really?
Saw the in-laws, checked out the progress of the cabin.
Nice. All right, here we go, folks. Last one. This one's for all the Tostitos. And they're racing.
Okay, Russian Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
What'd that do?
Pulled Russia out of the war.
Is that where you stop then, and then they're going to do the rest on their own?
Yep. So they're doing 12.4 and 12.5 in a row.
Good.
And you'll notice that is on Schoology there. So they got a due date of next Tuesday to get that in.
So are these definitions, or are these still how they related to the war?
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to take points off for just giving the definition, because I know a lot of kids just kind of look them up online. I understand that. But what I really want them to understand is like how their significance with the war, okay, and why they're significant, okay, is a little bit is better.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Great job. That was 3 rounds. So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to go right over here. And Mr. Pieper is going to do what I like to call a shameless plug. Can everybody see my screen? You guys are going to be in 11th grade next year for the most part, and you can start taking electives, okay? And one new course that you're going to see next year, Mr. Winters, I was counting on you singing Hamilton in the background. Don't play it, because we'll probably get our video like copyright infringement or something.
My name is Alexander Hamilton.
Keep going.
Forgot it now.
Wow, real. So what's kind of cool?
Shot. Not gonna miss my shot.
Wow. Okay. I promise that if you take this course, you won't have to listen to Mr. Winters try to sing Hamilton. But anyway, this is going to be a team taught course between myself and Mr. Mariska. what's gonna happen is not only are we going to examine the lyrics and the music and how it was, you know, how they turned this this story into a hip hop play, but as we're doing that, I'm going to be examining the revolution, the formation of American government, that type of stuff. You know, I'm very, very passionate about this class. I'm really excited about it, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity for you as students. So if you have any questions about this, I'm going to stick around afterwards. So if you have any questions about the course, please don't be afraid to ask. Even if you're not musically inclined and you're not like, I don't know if I want to do that, it's not like we're going to make you stand up and sing Hamilton or anything. This is just going to be learning, your opportunity to kind of to satisfy your fine arts requirement if you haven't done that already. So that's something to consider as you start the registration process going forward. Anything you want to add to this, Mr. Winters?
And there's a million things I haven't done. Alexander Hamilton.
That's exactly what it sounds like. Okay, awesome. In a moment, but not yet, I am going to open up that that quiz. Make sure that you're paying attention to your due dates here, folks. I'll be updating the grade book as we go along today. You'll notice